Dame and the Blazers came in, and I think we got to look at a Utah Jazz team, Jake, that frankly is just out of gas.
Yeah, I think, the Jazz last night were a team that, started to show some fatigue, no doubt about it. You look at, and they were talking about it on the radio broadcast a little bit, but the fact that Joe Ingles is tired, and this is something, it's not a criticism of Joe, it's just a byproduct of injuries. You have Joe playing a lot of point guard for this team right now, and I would say doing a pretty darn good job with it for what you're asking him to do with where he's at in his career. And I think, with him handling the ball so much, yeah, fatigue is definitely going to play a factor at some point. You can't expect Joe to be able to do this in the long term and still give you the same three-point percentage and still give you the same finishing around the rim and all those good things. So I definitely think we saw that play out last night. I think overall this game really is nothing to be worried about. Yes, they lost the game. Yes, Portland looked better than the Jazz did last night for most of the game, frankly, if we're being honest about it. But at the same time, last night we were sitting there, and we really just weren't that concerned because I feel like the Jazz were playing a very similar game to what they usually do. They were just tired, so they weren't able to finish. And I think this, again, just goes right back to this whole conversation of, what is this team going to look like when you get fresh legs back, which is Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley. And I hope that when they come back, this team finds balance. That's what I would hope, that this team, those two guys coming back is going to push everyone down the totem pole one rung. And now, Joe Ingles can get back to standing on the wing and standing on the corner. Bogey can get back to standing in the corner and on the wing and on the block. These guys can get back to their traditional role. And then hopefully Donovan Mitchell doesn't take forever to get back in the swing of things. My guess is it'll probably take him a game, maybe a little less than that, to get back into the swing of things. So last night I just felt like the Jazz were tired, and that was really all that there was to this loss.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you bring up Donovan Mitchell and knocking rust off. I think one of the things that was so interesting in this game last night, you mentioned Jingles. Point Jingles, I don't think is a good thing for this team. And I think what we saw was flashes of what Joe is still able to do. But I would agree that his legs are a little heavy right now. And he's done well bringing the ball up and distributing, but that's not his highest best use. And obviously they need him to do that. But I think the thing that we saw last night more than anything, it's mental fatigue. It's Jordan Clarkson at the end of the first half getting beat down the floor after a Rudy dunk, or a tip-in rather. How do you let C.J. McCallum beat you down the floor to hit a buzzer beater at the half? It's unforgivable. And that was what we saw time and again last night. Really, mental fatigue led to turnovers. Mental fatigue led to bad shots. You just saw a Jazz team that's ready for the postseason. That's what stood out to me most. But now the problem is, we talk about whether this loss or this game in general, Jake, means anything, or will there be a hangover? I don't know. Ask me 24 hours from now after the Blazers and Suns play tonight in Phoenix. If you are a Jazz fan, I think you are rooting for the Suns tonight, because you don't want to see the LA Lakers in round one.
No, I don't think you do. And this was a massive conversation on Twitter yesterday, after the game, during the game, and pretty much all day, where people are talking about, well, what's the better route for us? And I'm just simply telling everybody that whatever the route looks like, however you want to vocalize it, whatever the route is to avoid playing LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the first round of the postseason, let's go ahead and avoid that route. I would much rather see, Portland or, the Clippers or whoever, like that. Those are the teams that I want to see. Now, inevitably, you're going to get to the Lakers. If you handle your business, you're going to get to the Lakers, because I think we can all assume that the Lakers are still going to make a deep postseason run. I'd still be surprised if they didn't get to at least the Western Conference Finals, but that's just me. Anyway, point is that, I do think the Jazz, if you're a Jazz fan, you want nothing to do with the Lakers early in the postseason. And frankly, I think, again, to go back to the Donovan thing and the comeback and what that looks like and how efficient he is with getting back to 100% on the floor, you don't want to be saying, hey, Don, hey, buddy, are you cool? Like, we're down 20 at the end of this first game against the Lakers in a 7-game series.
Yep.
Are you good? Like, are you gonna be good for game 2? You don't want to be in that situation. That's you want nothing to do with that.
Well, I think one of the things that I find so interesting about the current state of the NBA playoffs, and this is why I love the play-in tournament, and I know a lot of people don't like it, and I know a lot of people have poo-pooed it.
Uh-huh.
But one of the reasons I really like this play-in tournament so much is that now, as a Jazz fan, I think you're rooting for the Suns tonight because if the Lakers wind up in that play-in tournament, and I really want to take a second to explain how this play-in tournament works, right? Because when you look at the bracket, you're going to essentially get the top 10 teams. 1 through 6 are going to get about a week off. 7, 8, 9, 10 are going to play in a tournament over, really 4 days. And that's going to determine who the 7th and 8th seed are. The loser of the 9-10 game is out. You're done. You play one game, you're out. The winner of the 9-10 game is guaranteed at least 2 games in this tournament. And, if you really take a minute and you look at the standings right now in the NBA, you're looking at teams in the West right now where you have the Lakers in the 7, the Warriors 8, Grizzlies 9, and the Spurs are in 10th. And it's essentially over. The Sacramento Kings are 2 games out of that 10th spot. I don't see any way you make that up. But right now, of those 4 teams, I think you are, if you project forward, I think the Grizzlies win the 9-10 game.
Yeah.
My guess is that the Lakers win the 7-8 game, so they'd be the 7th seed.
Right.
And that's going to leave you with the Grizzlies and Warriors.
Yeah.
And I think you are much happier to see either one of those teams, although the Grizzlies have been difficult for the Jazz to handle this year. And you just lost to the Warriors, but it's without Don and Conley. By the way, how long are you going to use that as an excuse? Because then what happens in the playoffs? But anyway, here nor there. I think you'd much rather see the Warriors or Grizzlies than the Lakers. And that's why I say, if you are a Jazz fan tonight, I think you're hoping the Phoenix Suns beat the Blazers.
Yeah.
And the Lakers wind up in that 7th, that 5th or 6th seed. Because honestly, you don't want the Lakers in round 1. And one of the arguments we had on Twitter, and I want to make sure I read these comments correctly because I've been accused of misquoting people, and it's mainly because I can't read, to be honest with you. That's not true. But I look at Coulter, Coco Magic 45 on Twitter. I said it's as simple as this. The Jazz are very good, but they live and die on threes, and that's never been a recipe for a championship. So adding guys like Mike James, Aaron Gordon, Norm Powell, or Andre Drummond would have made a significant difference. Nelso says no way. Dennis Winsey, Utah Jazz 6-man, says LMAO.
Yeah.
Josh Roberts says Jazz are adding 2 All-Stars to the rotation in a week. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I just ask myself, like Coulter says, Mike James, ? Drummond, LOL. What are also who you giving up? Well, dude, Mike James and Andre Drummond were free agents, right? I mean, you're looking at a fan base. If you don't see the value in Mike James, who's now signed for the rest of the season with the New Jersey Brooklyn Nets. I almost called them the New Jersey Nets. With the Brooklyn Nets, and Steve Nash called him a critical contributor. Mike James was a free agent.
Yeah.
Could have signed anywhere.
EuroLeague MVP.
Jazz never even called him.
Yeah.
How is that possible? Andre Drummond was always probably going to the Lakers, but did you at least lob a phone call? I'm telling you that the Jazz are very good. The Jazz are very good. But their weakness is going to be that they're going to win or die, win or lose, on the 3 ball. Last night, they didn't shoot the 3 as well as the Blazers did. They turned it over 15 times. And guess what happened? They lost. Now, we can also sit here and say, oh, well, we're getting 2 All-Stars back in the rotation. I'm telling you now, you can't count on Mike Conley.
I love the we'll be fine mentality out of the fan base. Like, like, oh, well, we're getting these guys back, so we'll be fine. I mean, it'll work out. We'll be fine.
It's okay.
Like I don't think that this team can afford to say, hey, we'll be fine. Like yes, you are the number 1 seed. However, if you're somebody who watches the NBA regularly, maybe you don't watch every single night, but you watch several times a week, you know damn well that just because you're the 1 seed, the only consequence there is home court advantage, which is a big deal for the Jazz. But it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden like way better than all these other teams in the postseason, because postseason basketball is a different brand of basketball than regular season basketball, and everybody knows that. James Harden was talking about it last night after what he did, and so I just think that we can't, as Jazz fans and observers, we can't say, hey, we'll be fine. I mean, that's just not going to be good enough.
I agree. Mr. Mitch says, Monty, again, love you, brother, but what are you willing to trade to get an Andre Drummond? He was a free agent.
You don't trade anybody to get him, bro. Like you could have signed him without.
Are you kidding me?
Like honestly, what does this team look like if you have Andre Drummond instead of Derek Favors coming off the bench? By the way, Andre Drummond is starting on some nights for the Lakers. Like he has been an impactful player.
Did you not see what he did last night? The Lakers are without LeBron and without AD last night. They win 124-122 over what is most people's description of the Rockets are. They play the hardest game in the NBA. They're not very talented. They're not very good. But you get Andre Drummond in a night without your 2 best players. In 22 minutes, he gives you 20 and 10 with 2 assists.
22 minutes.
22 minutes.
Do you know how dominant that is in 22 minutes? Like, that's insane,
20 points
bro.
and 10 boards in 22 minutes. I look at Mike James last night starting for the Brooklyn Nets. He plays 26 minutes, gives you 12 points, 5 dimes, 2 boards, and he turns it over 1 time. You're telling me that you wouldn't rather have Mike James than Trent Forrest?
How many times was it for Mike James?
5.
Yeah, I mean that's I know that's not like 15, but that's still meaningful.
2 of 3 from 3-point land.
Doing his job.
Key and Steve Nash calls Mike James a key contributor.
He is a key contributor, mainly because when he comes off the bench like that, there's a lot of times where he's going to be running point for them in the second unit, and that's a very important role on any basketball team.
Yep. Brett says, what would you give up to get a guy like Norman Powell? He's a clown. Okay, well, I don't know what Norman this is what I'm trying to understand. Like, why do you need to rip a player who's not on the Jazz that the Jazz didn't even try to get? Why all of a sudden does that make him crappy? If you watch Norman Powell's game, and I wasn't even going to bring this up, but
you got to. We're
listening to the radio last night on the way to the Jazz game. And a major radio personality in Salt Lake City is like, yeah, Rodney Hood, he's a huge disappointment for the Blazers. He's not even playing for them in like a month. It's like, bro, you also said that it's the same guy in the same sentence is like, and Norman Powell's just he's just an average player. He's more of a defensive contributor, doesn't give you much offensively. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, do people in Salt Lake City watch any other NBA basketball than the Jazz? Because when you look at Portland, they traded Rodney Hood a month ago. He's not even on the Blazers anymore. Somebody forgot to tell this guy that. And I'm looking at Norman Powell, and I'm telling you right now, Norman Powell is a key contributor for the Portland Trailblazers. And if you just look at what he brought last night, he played 39 minutes. He shot poorly, 1 of 5, 4 rebounds, a steal, a block, and he gave you 7 points. Mm-hmm. If you had Norman Powell on the Utah Jazz roster, and let me just give you his game log, right? Because if we look at him in totality, 18 points, 3 rebounds, 2 dimes, 16.5 points per 40, right?
Yeah.
Or 48 minutes, excuse me. You look at his game log, Boston 23, Atlanta 15, the Lakers 19, the Spurs 18, Houston 28, Brooklyn 19, Memphis 24.
Yeah.
Like you look at he is so much more than just a defensive guy.
He is Royce O'Neal 2.0. That's what he is.
And here's the other thing. I would give up Royce O'Neal to get Norman Powell in a second.
Yeah.
In a second. By the way, and you look at Blake Griffin now, who's another guy that was talked about on Twitter last night. Are you telling me Blake Griffin's would not fit into this offense? Well, he is. If you switched out Derek Favors for Blake Griffin, you're telling me that you're not getting far more minutes and Rudy's not getting far more time on the bench, like resting? I mean, you look at the guys that were available that this team never even offered on.
Yeah.
That were free agents that you didn't even have to make a trade for.
And that's what's really telling here. Everybody's like, oh, well, who you giving up to get Drummond? Who you giving up to get Mike James? Oh, we're not giving up anybody, bro. You don't have to. That's the beautiful part about it. Go back. Last night in this Twitter thread, you can find it on our channel. You got to go back. But on our channel, when deadline day was coming, we have a specific video talking about all the different moves that the Utah Jazz could have made to improve their team.
Yes.
And I specifically remember everyone was like, you guys are idiots for talking about, the Jazz, should sign Aaron Gordon. He's a nobody. So wait, Aaron Gordon's a nobody. Norman Powell's a nobody. All these guys, Mike
Drummond,
James is a
Blake,
nobody.
Mike James.
Like, come on, dude. Like, you guys need to put more effort into watching these guys, because what's funny is that if these guys were nobodies, they wouldn't be in the league. People wouldn't be signing them. You just don't know them because the Jazz never do anything at the deadline. And that's what I'm telling you. You got to have more respect for these guys.
What's the Mix says, what's the impact of this now? Because you guys are right. I just don't know how this changes things.
Oh, it changes things.
It changes things significantly, because if you look at, I look at all the teams that are around the Jazz in the playoffs. I look at everybody that's around the Jazz right now, and I say to myself, okay, so the Jazz are number one, been the best team in the NBA most of the year. Even without Don and Mike Conley, I think the loss last night is meaningless, frankly. I think at the end of the day, they're going to win the 1 seed. But I look at what this impact will be. The Suns added Chris Paul. They're much better. You look at teams like the Lakers, who we're all trying to avoid at this point. Why are you trying to avoid them? Well, because you look at the way they won their game last night, not to be redundant, but looking at who contributed to that team last night, I look at a guy like Ben McLemore. I look at Talon Horton-Tucker. 23 points out of Talon Horton-Tucker last night. Wes Matthews, Andre Drummond. I look at the fact that Ben McLemore gave you 26 minutes, 1 of 4 from 3, 2 dimes, a rebound. Like, Ben McLemore is a guy that shoots threes. He was hired to do one thing.
If you look at his season log, he's typically making 4 or 5 a night.
Yeah, you just look at the guys that they've added and the valuable minutes. Like Alfonso McKinney last night, 17 minutes, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. Like, those are valuable minutes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, you know what? It's just the Lakers, right? It's this is no big deal. Well, then you go and look at a team like Portland. I think the Jazz are far better than the Blazers. But the Blazers still went out and made the Norman Powell deal.
Yeah.
Because they knew they weren't good enough.
They knew Rodney Hood, who's not there anymore, who apparently is still there, was not good enough.
I mean, it's the reason that this conversation matters is because you're going to run into a Brooklyn team that went and got Mike James and Blake Griffin for very little. Those guys were buyouts, and they were free agents.
Well, and think about it, too. I know this is obvious, but they went and got James Harden, too. They didn't have to do that.
Yes. I look at Denver.
Yeah.
Look at Denver going to get Aaron Gordon, who now is playing a huge role for them.
Yeah.
I mean, every team around the Jazz got better, and the Jazz have the same roster essentially they had last year. And I think that's where you kind of get worried in these conversations. James Knight said, dealing in hypotheticals, guys, it's getting old hearing the same old tune. The Jazz should have got this guy or that guy. Let's just discuss what's in front of us, not what ifs, for goodness sake.
Yeah, here's the issue, though. It is what's in front of us,
It is exactly what's in front of
us. Last night I saw Norman Powell taking Bogey to the woodshed on the perimeter. Bogey is not more athletic than Norman Powell. So you could have had Norman Powell on your team, but you didn't do it. So forgive us for actually not talking hypotheticals. We're actually talking realities here. But the problem is that the Jazz fan base doesn't want to acknowledge that these are realities that you could have had. You could have and should have had, and now you're seeing them playing against you on a nightly basis, and they're making a difference. Now, the good news is, the saving grace is your team just happens to be good enough to overcome that most nights. Your team just happens to shoot a high enough percentage from three that they can overcome the Norman Powells and the Aaron Gordons and all these different players that you should have signed and didn't. But what I'm telling you here is in the postseason, you mark my words.
Exactly.
You mark my damn words here that these signings or lack thereof will come back to get this team. When this team does not go to the NBA Finals this year, I do not want to hear people coming in these comments saying, hey, you guys are just talking hypotheticals. Because it's funny what happens when hypotheticals turn into realities in the postseason. That's what we're talking about.
Well, and James, I think to your guy, Joe Ingles, here's my question. What impact does Mike James being a Utah Jazz man instead of a Brooklyn Net, what does that have on Joe Ingles? Because Mike James would be starting right now. And Joe Ingles would be a six-man playing his role. And you can just see that Joe is tired. And he has been so effective as a point guard.
Yeah.
But that all gets pushed down because here we are with 2 games left in the season, and you're really out of gas. And so Joe Ingles, his highest best use is a swing 2-3-4 who defends really well and shoots threes. He isn't able to lift, and he isn't able to get to the basket right now, I think just because he's tired.
Yeah.
Now, I think a week off is going to do Joe Ingles exponentially. I mean, the benefits are going to be massive.
Yeah.
You know, like he will be a much better player once the playoffs start. But my point is that I also think you're looking at a situation where you can't trust Mike Conley. I'm telling you right now, I have a lot of respect for Trent Forrest. I have a lot of respect for his talent. If Trent Forrest plays a single minute in the postseason, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And you just need to kind of own that. Mike Conley is not a guy that I think you can rely on, and I think they're doing the exact right thing. Mike Conley doesn't need another minute this season. I would not play him another minute this season. You need him as close to 100% as you can get in the postseason because Mike Conley's a vital player for this team. He is your second best player.
Yeah.
And Don is a guy that we saw him hopping around last night. He looks fine.
Yeah.
But again, I think he will have been out over a month. I think it's a month Saturday that Don has been injured. That's a long time for a basketball player. And, we saw it with James Harden last night in Brooklyn. I mean, he looked like the same old James Harden. Passing, shooting, stepping back. Like, I'm hoping that's the case for Donovan Mitchell. And I'm hoping in the first round that when you run into Golden State, right?
Yeah.
I'm hoping in the first round when you run into Golden State that there's no rust there, that this is just not that big of a deal.
Well, and I think, too, like the Golden State matchups, everyone, I got a couple people tweeting me yesterday that, hey, everybody talks about the Lakers, but I don't think we want to see Golden State either. And I'm saying that the Golden State games this year are not indicative of what you will see in a 7-game series because I think playing against Golden State, having Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley makes a completely different matchup.
I think,
totally
yes.
different.
And that's why I say you're rooting for the Suns tonight.
Yeah.
Because I think you want Portland in the play-in series.
Yeah.
Because frankly, if you look at the brackets, if the Lakers get that 7th seed, you avoid the Lakers altogether.
Yeah.
You are Lakers and Suns in the first round. Hey, let them run their faces into each other.
Death.
Like, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
If it's Lakers and Suns in round 1 of the playoffs, the Jazz have a much, 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 much easier road to the Western Conference Finals. Seriously. And I think right now what would it be, 3-6? Right now, if it ended today, would be Clippers and Mavericks. Amen to that.
Right.
Because Kristaps Porzingis back for the Mavs last night looked great.
See, and this is the thing. I love that you bring this up. Like, think about these matchups with these different teams and how much of a grind that those series would be. I mean, you're talking about the Clippers and the Mavericks. I mean, that like I don't think that the Mavericks are going to push the Clippers to 7, certainly.
No.
But that is a physical ass series. I mean, that's good news if you're the Jazz.
Yes.
And Lakers Suns is definitely one of the best series that we could ask for. And I think
that would be amazing,
dude. If I think I know everyone's going to say, "Oh, well, the Lakers are going to blow the doors off the Suns." That's not going to happen. I mean, those are going to be close games. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was a 6 or 7 gamer, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that'd be a long series.
Yeah.
I think it would. I mean, it is what it is.
And my point is that with those series being, being physical and being longer and being more drawn out, that's just helping the Jazz, because I think we can all agree that the Jazz, frankly, should be able to get rid of the Warriors in like 5.
Yeah, a couple people commenting on Rockets last night. Ilert Gannick, good morning to you, buddy. Says, yeah, the Lakers look good against the Rockets. Nice. Pat says, do the Rockets even matter? They're awful. Well, here's the thing, though. Do the Blazers matter? Because you're without your 2 best players if you're the Jazz. Well, what are the Lakers? They're without 2 of the best players in the world in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And the Rockets are running up and down the floor. They're getting an incredible performance out of guys like Kelly Olynyk and Kenyon Martin Jr.
Yeah. They're
playing really hard. They're playing with intensity. The Lakers won that game by 2 without LeBron and without Anthony Davis, and that depth matters. Forgotten Soul says, hey, Monty and Jake, what's up, Souls? Good to see you.
What up?
Sakshay Chatraverti D
Hello.
and stuff says,
okay.
Norman Powell wouldn't have come up for free. We would have had to give or would have had to trade one good piece. Well, sure you would have.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt. But
yes.
But again, are you, as a Jazz fan, let me just ask you straight away, would you trade Royce O'Neal to get Norman Powell?
Straight up.
I mean, I would absolutely. I'd do that every day.
I think Norman Powell is just as good of a defender as Royce, and I think that he brings you more consistent offense. Last night, you didn't see a lot of it, but typically he's a 15, 18-point-a-night guy, which would be huge on this team.
Yep, I agree. James Knight says, I'm not disputing the point you're making, but facts are Jazz have to get it done with who they have, with all due respect, right? Well, yeah, with all due respect, and I think they do. But the point is, when you're looking at playoff matchups now, and I mean, I again will say, I just don't feel confident about this Jazz team in the postseason.
Yeah.
I think when you either look at what they're going to run into in the West or who do they project to play in the East, I mean, I'd feel good about Milwaukee, but I don't see Milwaukee getting by Philly or Brooklyn. And I don't feel good about the Jazz in a 7-game series in the NBA Finals against Philly or Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup.
Those are both tough outs.
I think my bigger concern, just generally speaking, heading into the postseason, is the 3-point percentage for this team. I mean, you're going to be rested, which is good. I mean, that's definitely going to help the percentage go up. But again, with Don and Mike coming back, I seriously would expect it to take them literally one full game, one full night to get back into the flow of things.
Really?
Yeah, I don't.
That's it, just one.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to take them. I don't think it's going to take them like 4 or 5 games. I think it's one full game. Maybe if it's not one full game, maybe a game and a half. Maybe guys like Donovan Mitchell are special because they can do things like that.
Yeah.
And
I don't
frankly,
disagree with that. Yeah.
Whether it's fair or unfair, I think if you're a Jazz fan, the expectation has to be that largely Donovan Mitchell is going to come back and be the same guy. Maybe a little bit of rust, but he's got to be the same guy.
Yep, I agree. Forgotten Soul says Royce O'Neal for Norman Powell, same style of player. Norman just does it better. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, does it better looks like 18 points a night instead of 5 points a night, which is a big difference.
Well, and I think one of the things that is going to be a real true telling factor is in the success of the Jazz anyway is what are you going to get from Royce O'Neal? He's a guy that's going to have to give you some real key contributions at times. I mean, you're hoping most of that's defensive, but he's open a lot at the 3-point stripe. And I continue to maintain that every time Joe Ingles lets go of the ball from 3, I think it's going in.
It looks good.
I mean, I look at, Bogey right now, Bogdan Bogdanovic. Every time he lets it go, I think it's going in.
Yeah.
I rarely feel like it's going in for Royce O'Neal. And if I'm the Jazz, I need Royce O'Neal to make that shot.
Yeah.
I need his defense. Don't get me wrong. I need him to facilitate. I need him to swing the ball. I get all that. He's wide open on a lot of looks. Last night, the Blazers just didn't pay attention to him. Him and Trent Forrest were left to kill the Blazers last night, and they couldn't do it. And I know that everybody wants to put Trent Forrest in the Ring of Honor and retire his number, and I know that he's already in the Naismith Hall of Very Good. I get it.
Quarterback.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's my guy, right? We get it. The Jazz need one more guy. And when you have the setup that this team has, you can't have Royce O'Neal and Rudy Gobert give you nothing offensively. Offensively, you cannot play 3-on-5 basketball.
Yeah.
And right now, there's a lot of that in the matchups. And again, when, James Knight, with all due respect to you, I look at Rudy, and you need 15 and 20 out of Rudy pretty regularly in the postseason. He's capable of giving you 15 points and 20 rebounds every night in the postseason. And then you get into matchups like Denver, and then you get into matchups like Brooklyn or Philly. That's where you're really going to have to need a guy like a Royce O'Neal, Joe
Those
Ingles.
games, you got to shoot the ball at a high percentage.
Yeah,
a
I agree.
high percentage.
Brylark says Royce will need to average double-digit points in the playoffs for the Jazz to go all the way. He will have to give you a solid
12.
contribution.
Give me 12.
That's all you have to ask from him.
12 points.
Stanek Daniel. Ooh, Stanek, don't get crazy today. Don't put in the launch codes today, my friend. Stanek says, what is with Ilyasova? I just don't think he has a consistent role on this team. He is very, very matchup dependent because, frankly, defensively, he's a foul machine. And the Jazz last night learned the hard way that these stupid tic-tac fouls that the Jazz like to take when a guy's got a breakaway or while it may not foul a guy out of a game, you're putting teams like Portland at the line and you're fouling guys like Damian Lillard, putting them in the penalty.
90% free throw shooter.
It's just not a smart way to win a basketball game.
Yeah.
I would much rather save a foul and give up 2 points on a dunk than take that foul and wind up in the penalty for the back half of a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like in the NBA, if you allow your opponent to score points while the clock is stopped, you're asking for trouble. So I think you just need a higher level of intelligence at times.
Mm-hmm.
It's why you had 15 turnovers, I think it was last night.
Yeah.
And Ersan Ilyasova just doesn't have, like in a Portland game, who's he going to play?
He's not. I mean, the only matchup that he would realistically have would be against Enes Kanter, and that's not. I just don't think that the upside is there. I think that Quinn last night wanted Derek Favors to battle Kanter,
who got in foul trouble pretty quick.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very telling that they never, not never. You didn't have a situation where Carmelo was oftentimes switched into the 5.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. Now, having said that, everybody on the show yesterday that was crushing Carmelo, maybe rethink that. That dude can shoot. I mean, there's no doubt about that. It is, and you see, the reason I say last night, real quick, talking about fouls and turnovers, that just wasn't who the Jazz were last night. They didn't play themselves. And that's how you know they're tired. This loss last night, let's be very clear. You never want to lose a game. This loss last night is almost meaningless. You're going to win the 1 seed. It would take a miracle. You're going to Oklahoma City to play the worst team historically in the modern era of NBA basketball.
Yeah, that should be a 30-point win, honestly.
Then you're going to Sacramento. That's going to be the tester game. And that's why this Blazer Suns game tonight is a real ball buster because I think you want the Blazers in the 7-8 situation. Because if they're in the 7-8, the Lakers are in the 6.
Yeah.
But I don't think you want to go to Sacramento with a 1-game lead. Because if you lose to Sacramento and somehow the Suns win the 1 seed.
Yeah.
So
That gets a little uncomfortable.
I mean, do you want the 1
seed? You remember all those games that the Jazz lost against the Suns? Ugh.
Dude, you need the 1 seed here.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I don't think they're going to lose the 1
tough.
seed. I really don't. They're going to crush OKC. I don't have any doubt about that. I would agree. Sacramento is not a gimme. Sacramento is very similar to Minnesota, to Houston. These young teams that are run and gun style basketball teams that just like to get up and down and make your life difficult. That's the kind of game that you're looking at in Sacramento. And so, this game is super important tonight. However, if you're the Jazz, you are definitely rooting for the Suns tonight. As much as the 1 seed could get a little uncomfortable, I would rather have the 1 seed be uncomfortable than the odds say the Lakers are going to see us in the first round.
And here's the advantage you have. The Jazz are playing the Kings on Sunday. The Suns are playing the Spurs on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And those are must-win games pretty much for the San Antonio Spurs. I mean, they have a 2-game lead on the Kings. So, there's no free passes here. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The Suns, I think, are playing must-win basketball. I think they're going to rue, some of the way that they've played. They've lost, 2 in a row now. You're split. There's no great answer for who wins tonight, Portland, Phoenix. If you're a Jazz fan, there's really no good feeling on that game because you want both those teams to lose, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I do think that Portland's got a good shot to win this game tonight. I think they're really pleased with
back-to-back in Phoenix.
Well, here's why though. Here's why. So the back-to-back thing, I feel like gets a little bit mitigated in this little I like to call the end of the season right here when it's meaningful, kind of like a mini stretch. You're like, okay, we've got to have these games. We're giving it everything we have. We don't give a damn that it's a back-to-back. We're just going to,
we're selling out.
We're just selling out, So if you're the Blazers, you just came to Utah and won a game, which heading into the game, I would guess the Blazers were like, all right, if we have any shot, we got to win this game, and then we got to go to Phoenix. So let's focus on this. They handled their business. Now they're going to Phoenix.
Yeah.
So, hey, okay, it's a back-to-back, sure, but this is when guys like Dame, the clutch players in the league, are going to come out and give you 40. This is when you would expect Damian Lillard to have a really big night. So that's why I say if you're a Jazz fan, you want Phoenix to win this game because I'm telling you, you don't want anything to do with the Lakers. And if you can avoid the Lakers and you can see the Warriors instead, I think that does awesome things for your playoff run, because if you can handle the Warriors in 5, get a couple extra nights off while the other teams are finishing their series, that's going to be huge. If there's one thing we've seen this year with this Jazz team, when they're 100% healthy or with the injuries, when they're playing back-to-back, this is a completely different team than when they are rested and really locked in. So I think you should put your value on the rest and the recovery and putting yourself in the best possible position to, at a minimum, make the Western Conference Finals. That's the minimum.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see exactly what I just want to get to the playoffs, frankly.
Seriously.
I just want to get to the playoffs. A lot of comments. Let me see. Forgotten Souls says, is Fox and Barnes back for Sacramento? Did you hear about De'Aaron Fox? De'Aaron Fox has been out with whatever mystery ailment.
Right.
Well, he confirmed to Howard Beck at SI that it's coronavirus, and it crushed him. He and his fiance, I was reading a piece yesterday, I think it was.
Yeah.
He got coronavirus very bad.
The really coronavirus.
Bad. Yeah, so he's been out, and people have been wondering why. Well, it's no longer a wonderment. He had coronavirus.
Ouch.
And so he popped up on the bench the other night, and it kind of confirms that he's in step 1 of the exit process. He's played his last game of the season.
Yeah.
He's not going to be back. And Harrison Barnes, I haven't seen an update, and I can look. I know he was out or is listed out tonight with a groin. He hasn't played since April 26th.
Here's the game plan.
Yeah, it's up in the air whether he'll play.
Yeah.
If he can play, the Black Falcon's going to play.
I don't listen. I don't want there to be the Black. It's the Black Falcon. Yeah, the Black Falcon. We get it. The Black Falcon.
Black Falcon.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
Harrison Barnes.
Right.
It's the greatest nickname ever.
All gas, no break
for the Black Falcon.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were going to make a point.
Yeah.
That I'm sure is scintillating.
Thank you. I'm glad you have so much faith in me. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. So all I was going to say is that I do think that they'll beat the Kings. I do. I just think that it will be a tough game.
Yep. Cody Strickland says, sorry for being late, Jazz. Yeah, Cody.
Yeah, get your ass in here. God.
Darn it. Hi, Cody.
And he will every single time.
Says, sorry for being late. Jazz really dropped the ball these past 2 games. If the Suns lose tonight and we would have won last night, the season would be over. Guys could have some rest.
Yeah,
well, candies and nuts. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle, but she don't, so she's not. Okay.
Wow.
Jeremy Moulton says, good morning, guys. I am scur of the Lakers. You should be.
Yeah.
Forgotten Soul says, we had so many turnovers last night on the non-existent Portland defense. You know the funny thing about that non-existent Portland
Everybody
defense?
says that, dude, but it's just not true.
Nurkic is pretty bad offensively, let's be honest. He has no lift. I'm not sure he can dunk. Seriously, I'm not sure that Josef Nurkic can dunk right now. He's coming off of a horrible injury, I get it. But he can't catch the ball. But my man is physical. Terry says, how about that shitty officiating last night?
Here we go. I'm
just not doing it.
Here we go.
30 more games, and they'd be a top 3 seed for the Lakers, probably. Brylark says, I think Quinn is confident that they will win the next 2 games. Reserves came in pretty early last night, and they seem to be committed to having Donovan for the postseason. Don't need him in the next 2 games. Totally agree.
Yeah, I would agree.
They're going to crush OKC. They better. By the way, interesting point, and I think it was by Steve in the comments earlier, talking about Bogdanovic came back to earth last night.
Mm-hmm.
Bojan.
It's really unfair.
He's still an elite player. He had 1 game where he didn't score 100 points.
Well, if you remember after the Denver game, people were calling him Jesus Christ. So, I mean, we just got to...
Joseph Smith.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. My bad.
Shelter 1988 says, I agree the Jazz will still have the 1 seed for sure. Cody Strickland says, I woke up at 3 a.m. to head to work and got caught up. So wait, making money is more important than being on time for this show?
What?
You got to get your priorities straight.
Here's what's going to happen, Tonto.
If the Lakers play in the play-in, who would they rather play, us or the Suns? I think you'd rather play the Suns because DeAndre Ayton's soft like batter.
Whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Jeremy Bolton says the officials totally lost. No, Jeremy.
Okay, dude, make the point. You have to, because now we're getting multiple comments on it. Roll out the foul. Roll out the fouls. Roll out the fouls. Come on,
Jeremy.
You guys like.
Jeremy.
How the fuck else would you do this job?
The officials totally lost the game for the Jazz, and why are you guys hating on the Jazz so much? Wink, wink. Okay, thank you for the wink emoji, because now I can move on. Shelter88 says JC was efficient last night, but everyone else was off. But it was funny. We went to the game last night because we don't watch Jazz games.
And we don't get sleep either, so it's just kind of...
No sleep. Crew.
Team no sleep, yeah.
Crew love. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the point is...
Crew love!
God bless.
The point is...
wow.
Jordan Clarkson... Look, how do I say this comfortably? The Philippines is our number 2 country on this show. I just want people to know that. We love you. I own a lot of shoes like Imelda. Have you ever figured out who Imelda Marcos is?
No.
Okay. I just call me Imelda every time we talk shoes. Jordan Clarkson, 41 points and no assists the other night. And you look at how he scores last night. What do the games have in common? Seriously, if you ask yourself this question, the Jazz lose when Jordan Clarkson goes off. And why do they lose? Because Jordan Clarkson rarely passes the ball. And so what does it take for him last night for Clarkson to score 29 points? It takes 17 shots and 3 of 8 from 3.
Yeah.
The 3-point percentage is a volume thing for him because he's only, I think he's shooting 30% from 3 this year.
Yeah, he's right in that. He's 30 to 34%. Yeah.
The problem is Jordan Clarkson's got one job.
Yeah.
Give me the ball and get out of the way because I'm going to shoot.
Yeah.
That's what he does. And that's great when he's a 6th man of the year coming up here in a month. And we're all celebrating. but does that win you a championship? Because when Don comes back, those numbers are going to go way down.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
And Jordan Clarkson deserves every moment of his success. 34% from three. He's averaging 18 points. He's well over his career numbers. So, hey, good for him. He's having a great season. But just pay attention to his huge games. When he scores a ton of points, they generally will lose because it's outside of the offensive framework that this team has set up.
Yeah.
And when he shoots in volume from three, you're in trouble, right? Like last night, I want Bogdan Bogdanovic, I want him shooting more. I look at the situation. He only took 14 shots, 0 of 5 from three, 12 points, 4 boards. No assists, no steals, no blocks, 4 turnovers.
You know what was funny last night? Like, yeah, everyone's saying, oh, well, Bogey had an off night. But when I say he had an off night, I'm not talking about the box score. I'm talking about his mentality about getting the ball. Because last night, I did not see a guy in Bogey who was demanding the ball on the block. Like that I didn't see that too much. And my guess is that was not intentional. That wasn't something that he chose to do, obviously. But my guess is that the mental fatigue, plays a little bit of a role in that. And I think that, again, I know we keep making this point, but it's so vital for this team. When these two guys come back, this team, specifically Quinn Snyder, is going to have to figure out how to put all this back together because they've played without those two guys for so long.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. And, it's interesting that somebody just asked, I think it was Sakshay, said, what about Conley and Don sitting out game one? No. They're going to be ready to go.
No way.
If they sit out game one, now you're terrified.
Dude, if they can walk, they're playing.
Yeah. Brylark says Clarkson goes full Kobe. You win by Clarkson, you die by Clarkson.
Well.
And he's been winning a lot by Clarkson. Jeremy Bolton says, who else do you want taking those shots besides Clarkson, especially with Donnie and Mike up? Bogdan Bogdanovic.
That's who I want taking him.
Joe Ingles. I want ball reversal. I want ball movement. That's when this team dominates. That's when this team wins every game for the entire century in January and February.
I think Quinn even said that before the game, that in the behind the scenes coach's pregame show. I think he said it. Like, hey, we got to move the ball more. When we don't move the ball, we struggle. When we don't move the ball, we get contested looks. But when we do move the ball, we get wide open looks, and they are definitely still working on that.
Yeah, Brett says, way to nail that game last night. You guys knew exactly what Nurkic was going to give them. He was not going to give them much offense, and he was going to foul people. And I don't give a Baker's foul. He doesn't care. I mean,
he straight up slapped Rudy in the face last night, bro.
But the funny thing is, Nurkic is very me. He will make threes, and he is very difficult to guard because he's just bigger than you. Funny because somebody said I haven't heard bag alert yet.
Well, now you just did.
Cody Casey Finlinson, good morning. He says, has the search party found Ingles yet?
Oh.
Wow.
Woo!
Okay. I'm starting to worry we will find him in the Jordan River. Casey? That is very well said. I am proud of you. Micah says, Jordan Clarkson is a split personality. I love him when it goes in, but lately it hasn't been going in a lot.
Yeah.
We're talking about basketball, right? Shelter88 says, but they were off. Bogey and Ingles were really off last night. So who else but Clarkson? It doesn't matter if you're off.
Yeah.
Right? When you're Bogdan Bogdanovic and you are the best player on the floor, you've got to give your best player on the floor the ball.
Yeah.
And Jordan Clarkson is not your best player. I think Bogdan Bogdanovic, with all due respect to Jordan, I think Bogdanovic is a better player than he is. And when Bogdan Bogdanovic gets going, that's the thing that I think a lot of people forget. Hey, I'm 0 of 5 from 3. Well, let's make you 0 of 6 and then 7 and then 8 because eventually it's going in.
Yeah.
Right? And when it's not going in, and this is the issue last night, you had Carmelo on Bojan a lot. Go to the basket. Carmelo Anthony's not a great defender. Carmelo Anthony's not a quick guy. But he didn't do that because the ball wasn't getting reversed. The extra pass was not coming. And I think a lot of that is why you saw him go 0 of 5. So I just feel like you have to You have to keep feeding the beast, man. When Donovan Mitchell's 0 of 5, do they just bring in Jordan Clarkson and he doesn't give Don the ball?
Yeah, and last point I'd make on this, too, is early in the game when Clarkson's not on the floor. Obviously, Clarkson's not starting. He comes in, 6 Man of the Year guy. So when he's not on the floor, specifically last night, Bogey was getting looks early in the game. I mean,
Yes.
he had several buckets in the paint, including a back cut on Carmelo for an easy layup. So, like, the formula to get Bogey going was working. I mean, that's essentially how they do it. Hey, let's get a couple back cuts. Let's get you on the block.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see the ball go through the hole, and then let's start raining from three. But then Clarkson comes in, and he stops getting the ball. So I think that's kind of the conversation and the point we're trying to make here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things where Jordan, and I know we keep saying this, but once everybody's back and it's Don and Mike and everybody, you're going to be fine. When it's Jingles and Clarkson coming off first, you're fine.
Yeah.
You're fine. Brett says, hey, can you guys understand the play-in tournament? I think you've got this wrong. You really want the Lakers to win the 6th seed so that they have to play. No. Okay. So I feel like I know the play-in tournament pretty well. Mm-hmm. Okay. The play-in tournament's very simple. The top 6 teams don't play in the play-in tournament. They get a week off. Okay. So what happens is you have the 7-8 game. The winner of the 7-8 game goes into the 7th seed. They play one game. That's it. They're off. The winner of the 7-8 game goes into the 7th. The loser of the 7-8 game will play the winner of the 9-10 game. The loser of the 9-10 game, you're out! Hit the road, loser. You're done for the year. You don't want to be in the 9-10 game because what does that mean? You're guaranteed to play 2 games. So you have to win the 9-10 game, and then you got to play the loser of the 7-8 game. The winner of that second game, which would be the winner of the 9-10 game and the loser of the 7-8 game, play each other, and then the winner becomes the 8th seed. So what I'm telling you is you want the Lakers to win the 6th seed because if they wind up 7 or 8, they're going to win the 7-8 game.
Yeah.
You would hope, right? Okay, they go into the 7th seed, you miss them anyway. What if they lose the 7-8 game? What if Anthony Davis, who's now battling a groin, and LeBron James, who was supposed to play 2 games ago and hasn't because his leg hurts, what if they're not 100% and they lose the 7-8 game?
And it's going to go into crisis lockdown mode here at the house.
Now, all of a sudden, they're going to play 2 games, and my guess is they'd win against the winner of the 9-10 game. What's that mean? It's Jazz and Lakers in round 1.
Twitter's been going crazy.
You don't want that. You don't want that. And I'm just telling you now, if you're a Jazz fan, you better root for the Suns tonight.
If you're a Jazz fan, all of a sudden, you're a Suns fan.
I'd be rooting for the Blazers to fall in frankly, if you're a Jazz fan, I think you want Lakers and Mavericks in the 5-6, and you want the Blazers in the play-in tournament.
I want it.
I mean, I think that's what you're after, right? Because then you avoid both those teams, and you really avoid Clippers, Suns, Lakers, Mavericks.
Let's not see those teams till like later in the postseason.
That's what I'm saying.
We need to see those teams in the first round.
This play-in tournament,
I think it's brilliant.
It's awesome.
I mean,
I love it.
LeBron can hate on it, but I think it's brilliant.
Whoever came up with that shit need to be fired.
Yeah, well, I disagree with you. Cody Strickland says, slow down on the comments. Cody Strickland says both Mavs and Blazers did their job. They did.
Yeah.
Jazz Huddle says, appreciate you stopping in last night, Souls. Sorry that only one of us could make it on. And Shelter 1988 says, Jazz Huddle is the best play-by-play Jazz channel.
Great.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Way to go, Jazz Huddle.
Yeah,
good job.
seriously.
Cody Strickland says, which is why I ask you guys, Monty, who do the Lakers prefer to play? Well,
I don't think, to be honest with you, man, I don't think the Lakers give a damn who they play. To be honest, to be completely transparent, I think the Lakers mentally are saying to themselves, hey, we're on a mission. Like we're gonna just destroy anybody who comes in our way. And
you got 20 and 10 on a Drummond in 20 minutes
last
night.
I don't think people realize
What?
like we just said that Davis is dealing with a groin. but I don't think people realize how good the Lakers' depth really is. I mean, this is not a team who is worried about being tired. This isn't a team who is struggling with age. This team is dialed in. Their second unit has been battling and carrying them, and now you're going to get a fully healthy LeBron back, and hopefully Davis can be like 80%. I mean, they're a problem, dude. I mean, they have a battle. They've got a long road, but
here's the other thing. Do you really think the Lakers care who you put in front of them?
No.
I don't think the Lakers give a damn.
I mean, I wake up in the morning, I piss excellent.
They're reigning NBA champions. They hung their banner last night. They don't care who you put in front of them because they think they're going to beat them.
I don't give a
Right? Like, I'm serious. I don't care who you put in. And that's what I want Jazz fans to be. I want you not to care. If you're a Jazz fan, I would love to see a Jazz fan say, I want the Lakers, I want the Clippers, I want the Suns.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I want to beat the best teams in the West, and then I want to go and beat the Brooklyn Nets, because when we beat the Nets, we're undoubtedly the best team in the NBA, and we're world champions.
Okay, fuck you. How's that?
Yeah, like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. But here's the problem. The Lakers are better than the Jazz when all things are equal. Do you know how deep the Lakers are right now? Like, if you look at what happened last night, and again, I feel like I am, slurping LeBron and the Lakers. Do you realize that they got double digits from Markieff Morris, Andre Drummond, Cantavius Caldwell-Pope, Talon Horton-Tucker, McKinney, Kuzma, and Montrezl Harrell?
Bro.
All in double figures last night. In a game where they didn't have LeBron and they didn't have AD, and they're playing an upstart Rocket team who runs up and down the floor like, they're Megatron or whatever, DK Metcalf in a track meet. Just saying. And they win 124-122. And all of a sudden, it's the point that I was making for about a month now because, well, I'm brilliant.
Are we clear on that?
And better looking than you too. But all of a sudden, the Lakers have played their depth for so long that, well, what do you know? They're all much better players now. And you're getting key, like Talon Horton-Tucker.
Yep.
My dude, 23 points, 10 dimes, 2 boards, 2 steals.
That's pretty much self-explanatory.
Only 3 turnovers in 37 minutes.
Bro, productive. Right? Like,
They turned the ball over 11 times playing reserve guys. Meanwhile, you look at the Jazz who were playing their best lineup, and they turn the ball over 15 times and lose.
Oh, shit. Damn, I am tripping.
So I'm saying you want to stay away from the Lakers. Okay, you're just going to be Ransack. Ransack says, I want the Clippers. We're a better matchup against the Clippers.
Agreed.
I think you're
agreed.
I would rather see the Clippers than the Lakers.
100%.
Because
the Clippers can be had.
The Clippers don't have a way to answer Rudy Gobert. They have to switch everything. And the other thing is, I think Royce O'Neal and Paul George, as much as you can limit Paul George, Royce O'Neal's, I think, can limit Paul George. And then, it's Kawhi and Don.
Yep.
It's Kawhi and Conley. It's you have ways to match up with them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have ways to match up with them.
As much as I don't love Bogey on Superstars, I mean, you're going to see that, definitely.
Yeah. Dark Winter says, much have the Lakers in the other side. The idea of them winning the first play-in game is high enough. I will be rooting for Portland tonight.
Ugh.
I think You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Jazz Huddle says, Souls, we beat them by 30 in one of the games. What had Forgotten Soul says? Sean, we barely beat the Rockets 3 times this season. Well, and I guess we're probably too far into this now, but
yeah,
it is what it is. Make sure you give us a thumbs up on this video. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. We are trying to get to 750 subscribers just as quickly as we can. And many of you probably know that we are giving away a PlayStation 5 and one of the hoodies from our new clothing line, Elevated Clothing. When we get to 750 subscribers, the next show we're going to give that away.
By the way, that's going to be probably next week.
Yeah, it is. It is coming fast. That's what she said.
God bless.
Yeah. Thanks, Tebow.
Wow.
622 subscribers right now. We have, 128 to go. And then we're going to give away a PS5. So please give us a thumbs up. It helps the channel grow. Hit subscribe, because then at 1,000, and you can't get to 1,000 without. Thanks, Jake. 750.
The dog is down here causing chaos.
Okay, it is what it is, man. Once we get to 1,000, I don't know what we're going to do. We've given away an Xbox already. We're giving away a PS5.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I don't know how much better the giveaways can get at this point.
Are we going to give away a Ferrari at 1,000?
Hey, I hope so, man.
I mean, it could be. Casey Finland says, I know we're hitting basketball, but I can't wait for the NHL playoffs to start. My personal favorite playoff. I think a lot of people. Brylark says, you guys have such a great show. Thank you. Mitch says, this is go-to content. Thanks so much for being here every day. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Jeremy Bolton says, when giveaway time for the PS5 comes, how are you going about it? Well, we're going to go about it the exact same way we went about it last time.
It's really simple and easy.
Like, there's a bowl over there on the right that has everybody who subscribes.
Yeah, here's the bowl.
And so what we do is we take a name every time somebody. So here's what you have to do. You have to subscribe to the channel. And if you already did this for the Xbox Series S, you're in that bowl already. But for the PS5, if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe, take a picture that you subscribed, put it on Twitter and Instagram, and just tag The Monty Show, Monty The Monty Show, on Twitter and Instagram or Instagram. But you have to tag us both. The Monty Show, hi, that's me, and SLC Supercars, he's that guy.
Me.
Me to me.
Me to me.
You have to tag us both on Twitter or Instagram. You're entered to win. And as simple as I can say it, we're going to pull a name, we're going to mix up that bowl, and we're going to pull a name out of that. It was Agent S last time. We gave it away. We went and saw him.
Yep.
He happens to live in Saratoga Springs. We saw him Saturday. Drove by his beautiful home. He was actually gardening when we showed up. Hung out in the very windy conditions of Saratoga Springs and gave him an Xbox Series X. Well, we do ship internationally. That's one of the biggest questions we have. We have people in regular listeners in New Zealand, Australia, China, Japan,
Philippines.
The Philippines, obviously, all over Europe.
Germany.
Yep. I had a great conversation on comments yesterday with a fan in Belgium about Eden Hazard not being with Chelsea.
Dude.
After a terrible, terrible, terrible loss by Chelsea the other day. Don't even.
I want better fucking execution.
I hate Arsenal more than I hate your
LeBron.
ex. Like, it is what it is. Stanek Daniel says, you guys deserve 1 million subs. Great show.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Shelter 1988 says, if you are a Jazz fan, subscribe also to the Jazz Huddle. Subscribe also to this channel. Okay, cool. Casey Finland, it says, come on, Monty, I'm the Payson farmer. You are a Payson farmer. I agree with that. Congratulations. Forgotten Soul says, I live in Utah in a town you guys have never heard of. Okay, Forgotten Souls, what town is that? The answer to the title of your show is yes, Eugene 12 says.
Yeah.
Are the Jazz out of gas? Yeah, they are.
Yes.
They are, and there's that's not a knock on them. It just is what it is. Cody Strickland says, I think I tweet it right to you guys, but I don't know, LOL. I don't use Tweeter that much. Cody, if memory serves, you are in, I think.
I'm pretty sure you're in, yeah.
So there you have it.